This is Headline News. I'm David Goodnow. Thanks for joining us. Minimum wage workers will have to wait a little bit longer before seeing congressional action on a salary increase. Instead of voting on a minimum wage hike Wednesday as expected, lawmakers fought over a Republican amendment. The legislation itself would raise the minimum wage 90 cents to $5.15 an hour by 1997. The GOP amendment would exempt some small businesses from any minimum wage requirements, as well as child labor and overtime requirements. As many as 10 million workers could be affected. GOP leaders say the provision will protect jobs. Democrats and the White House say will hurt workers. Some voters just want action.
I always was under the assumption that a person should work to live and not live to work. I think America needs to address these issues now.
I have a part-time job that I'm making $9.16 an hour, but that's not no big money because that's less than $5,000 a year. So I'm still living under my income, and I live in a low-income rent place. But the rent, every time I get a raise, the rent go up.
America needs a raise, ladies and gentlemen. We all need the dignity that permanent, decent housing would afford all of us.
Also in Capitol Hill, Republican legislators again unveiled a plan to change the nation's welfare system. Charles Bierbauer examines their latest offering.
The Republican welfare plan is not much different from last year's, but there's more money for child care, $4 billion, and $7 billion less in savings than the original plan had.
The president has now vetoed twice 2 separate welfare reform bills that we've sent to him. Perhaps the third time will be a charm.
Republicans say they've built on 4 pillars. Welfare clients must find work or training within 2 years. States could make that sooner. Lifetime benefits would be limited to 5 years. Welfare rolls would be purged of non-citizens and convicted felons. Responsibility would be turned over to the states. Putting federal welfare money directly into the states' hands is still the structural keystone of the Republican plan. The plan does not tell the states what they must do, but does spell out what they may do. They may cut off payments to unmarried teen mothers and require them to stay in school and live with an adult. They may cap the amount of benefits a family can receive. They may test welfare clients for drug use. Republicans are not even sure that's the best idea.
To put a drug testing provision in the bill will raise the cost to the states, and they may have some problems with that. Now, you can do some random testing.
Drug testing is a peripheral element of the welfare plan, but it looms larger on the political scale because Bob Dole raised it in Wisconsin, where Dole and Clinton have dueled for the title of welfare reformer. Clinton would permit drug testing, too, and his plan also calls for a 2-year work requirement and 5-year time limit. But it may not be welfare itself that stymies a reform bill.
If Congress sends him a clean welfare reform bill that requires work, that promotes responsibility, and that protects children, that he will sign it.
Republicans say they won't send Clinton a simple welfare bill.
It will be tied together with Medicaid. There is a symbiotic relationship between welfare and Medicaid that cannot be ignored. If you're going to do the job right, they need to go together.
Republicans say they've kept guarantees that children and pregnant women will still get Medicaid. But the Republicans also need the $72 billion in Medicaid savings if they're going to meet their other goal of balancing the budget. Charles Bierbauer, CNN, Washington.
South Korea's defense ministry said a North Korean Air Force pilot has defected. Officials say a Soviet-built MiG-19 crossed the border and landed in South Korea Thursday morning local time. The pilot reportedly dipped the jet's wings to signal his intent to defect. After landing, he reportedly told journalists he could no longer live under the North system. It was the first North Korean Air Force defection since 1983. A passenger who said she took an earlier flight on the same ValueJet plane that crashed into the Florida Everglades said it had problems on the way to Miami. Pamela Hettinger said she regrets she didn't try to warn oncoming passengers. She said the plane's engine stopped before takeoff from Atlanta, and the electricity went out in the cabin before landing in Miami. Meanwhile, heavy equipment has been arriving in the Everglades in preparation for dredging the crash site. It's expected to begin in a few days. In another development, CNN has confirmed the government has decided to ban passenger aircraft from carrying oxygen generators. The ban will be announced Thursday and will take effect immediately. Investigators suspect oxygen canisters may have played a role in the ValueJet crash. In Montana, Highway Patrol and local sheriff's vehicles escorted a convoy of trucks near the Freeman compound on Wednesday night. Authorities would only say the convoy contains electrical generators. The anti-government group has been holed up on the ranch for 59 days. Colorado State Senator Charles Duke spent a week trying to end the standoff. Talks broke down Tuesday. Duke said most of the members are just common criminals who don't want a peaceful settlement.
It's my belief they really wanted, you know, my name added to and what little stature I have added to the negotiations in order to give them some prominence. But, you know...
Is your reluctance to do that?
I'm certainly not going to endorse what they're doing now, and I'm going to tell everyone else in the country who might be inclined to support them to please stay away from here. We're not dealing with honorable people.
Some Freemen face federal and state charges ranging from fraud to threatening public officials. A property owner considered one of Los Angeles' worst slumlords is back in custody after years on the run. Charles Feldman has that story.
Vijayan Sharma is not a happy man. 8 years after being convicted for more than 100 housing code violations in buildings he owned, Sharma was in custody to face justice again.
It's been a while. The court previously...
You see, Sharma skipped town in 1987 after being sentenced to 23 months in jail. He skipped very far. Authorities say he went to Fiji, to India, to Canada, to Scotland, and ended up in, of all places, the Catskill Mountains in New York State, where he was arrested last week.
In the scheme of things here in Los Angeles, he's at or near the top of the worst violators, the worst slumlords that we've had in the city.
For his part, Sharma told CNN in a sort of captive interview that he is innocent.
My tenants were victims because they did not get low rents any longer after I left. I had the cheapest rent in the city. I was very competitive.
No doubt Sharma's rents were low, but apparently so were his standards. These are but a few of the evidence photos taken of the 5 buildings he was cited for. And this former tenant is not exactly grateful for Sharma's self-proclaimed generosity.
The rooms were falling apart, a lot of water was leaking, and he wouldn't fix it. All the stairwells were falling. Everything was bad.
Sharma may not be a slumlord in just L.A. Authorities believe he may own other rundown properties elsewhere in the United States and abroad. Sharma's own brother, in fact, is himself a convicted slumlord.
I'd rather not speak of it.
The fact that he was convicted on so many counts does not leave Sharma daunted.
You've got leaky faucet, that's 1 count. If someone uses an extension wire, that's 1 count. If there's a peeling paint, that's 1 count. If there's one road somewhere...
Well, you get the idea. Sharma is clearly a man who does not want to go to jail, which may be unfortunate because that original 23-month sentence could now become as much as 56 years because he chose to flee. Charles Feldman, CNN, Los Angeles.
The Pentagon has disappointing news for computer hackers. They may be able to get into the military's computers, but data on classified material like defense systems are out of their reach. The General Accounting Office said hackers are attacking military computer systems as often as 250,000 times a year. The Pentagon estimates they get in about 2/3 of the time. A spokeswoman said the most sensitive systems are not accessible. Federal Trade Commission says Toys R Us isn't playing fair. The toy retailer faces antitrust charges for allegedly pressuring manufacturers to stop selling toys to discount warehouse clubs. The FTC said Toys R Us urged toy makers to package their products more expensively so customers could not get competitive prices at the clubs.
We allege that Toys R Us has used its market power to extract agreements from toy manufacturers to cut off discount warehouses from popular individual toys. Many toy manufacturers have no choice to go along. Toys R Us has that much clout in the marketplace.
Toys R Us said its buying practices are designed to protect its large investment in the industry, and it will vigorously contest the charges in court. Former Los Angeles police detective Philip Van Adder gave his deposition Wednesday in the wrongful death civil suit against O.J. Simpson. He was one of the lead investigators in Simpson's criminal case. Van Adder told reporters he's tired of talking about Simpson and needs to get on with his life like everybody else. He retired from the LAPD in February after 27 years. Federal officials want to talk to a California fisherman, but he won't let them on his boat. Coast Guard said it's an issue of safety. The fishermen calls it harassment. Rusty Dornan explains.
As a Coast Guard cutter hovered in the whitecaps nearby, salmon fisherman Jim Blaze vowed to continue his battle. On Sunday, Blaze refused to allow armed members of the Coast Guard to board his vessel for a routine safety inspection. The Coast Guard began a 4-day chase at sea.
I won't be arrested, though. I've done nothing wrong, and they're not going to make an example of me, so I guess it's up to Janarino right now.
And that may be the case. The Coast Guard backed off from a confrontation at sea and turned the case over to the Department of Justice.
We have decided to withdraw and stop monitoring the whereabouts and activities of Mr. Blaze, and he is free to go about his business.
Blaze has led battles on land as well as sea against the Coast Guard, picketing the agency after officers boarded his boat 3 years ago. Blaze was angered at first by officers trying to board carrying guns. From there, it grew. The incident soon became a floating media event. The fishermen even called and received calls from the White House.
I don't need the federal government to tell me what's safe on my vessel. I've been running boats for 25 years alone, and I'm a professional seaman. I do not need Big Brother.
Blaze's standoff on the high seas has caused a number of local fishermen to rally to his cause, complaining about Coast Guard policies.
I think he's picking up some ambient anger that's around. Anybody who's been boarded at a very inconvenient moment might be a little bit upset.
The Coast Guard says the inspections are for the safety of commercial fishermen as well as all boaters. Justice Department officials say they just want to talk to Blaze on dry land and say there are currently no charges pending. For now, without the Coast Guard on his tail, Blaze says he may just go fishing. Rusty Dornan, CNN, Monterey, California.
Coming up in Consumer News, Discount Airlines feel the effects from the ValueJet crash. And still ahead, band leader, musician, funny man will catch up with Kevin Eubanks.
Considerably cooler temperatures in the east, but it remains hot across much of the south. Cool weather remains in the northern Rockies and the northwest.
This is Headline News, a CNN network.
ValueJet Airlines is trying to assure investors the company can rebound after that deadly plane crash in the Everglades. Chairman Robert Priddy used a nationwide teleconference to stress that safety comes first. He said the airline has adequate cash reserves and plans a careful phased return to full scheduled service over the months ahead. Since the crash, many travelers have questioned the safety of smaller carriers. Brian Jenkins reports on how it's affecting the industry.
4 years after it got off the ground, Kiwi Airlines flies 15 planes to 8 locations, including several served by ValueJet. As ValueJet's fortune sank in the aftermath of the Everglades crash, Kiwi's bookings jumped 5%.
We've worked very hard working with travel agents who know the product, who know the people here, and they tell their clients and reassure their clients that we're a good carrier for them.
Beth Edelson bought a Kiwi ticket to Chicago weeks ago, but had second thoughts after the ValueJet crash.
I went on the internet yesterday, did a little delving around, checked the safety record of Kiwi, which looked very good.
Some other startup airlines with solid safety records haven't fared as well, especially on the Atlantic coast. Nations Air, founded last year to serve Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Boston, saw cancellations soar and bookings fall 40% last week. On Monday, the chief executive canceled all flights, laid off a third of the staff, and turned the company into a charter service.
As a small company, it's very difficult to make a gamble to stay in a market that you know you're going to incur losses, and you do not know exactly how large those losses can be.
JetTrain, launched in January to fly between Pittsburgh, Newark, and Orlando, saw advanced bookings drop off last week, too. But it's actually filling more seats on flights this week than before the ValueJet crash. Rubing says the boss that travelers look past negative news. Low-cost carriers have caught on in a big way in the past few years. Since 1990, new airlines have been started at a faster clip than the industry has seen since right after deregulation took effect in 1978. The value jet crash has made low fares less alluring, and advertising a strong safety record simply reminds people of the risk of air travel, however small. Airline analysts say what counts with consumers over the long haul is price. Brian Jenkins, CNN, Newark.
Saks Fifth Avenue's posh reputation apparently is in vogue on Wall Street. The legendary New York retailer's stock soared almost 40% on its first day of trading on the New York Stock Exchange Wednesday. Saks is selling $400 million worth of stock in its initial public offering. It plans to use the money to pay off part of its $975 million debt. Another record high for Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained almost 42 points on Wednesday to close the day at 57.78. Headline Sports is on deck.
Baseball's our subject. Our question is, who is second behind Hank Aaron on the Braves' all-time home run list? The answer is up next.
This is Headline News, a CNN network.
Well, if my check is $100, I get back 20. If my check is $300, I get back 60. If it's $600...
12 home runs. I'm Darren Sutton, Headline Sports. That's right, kids. Pack the family truckster because we're going to Wally's World because he can swing the stick. The Padres put the wood to the Phillies 5-2 and still sit comfortably atop the West, 3.5 games ahead of San Francisco. Wally Joyner hit 2 home runs, a 3-run shot, and a 2-run shot. A little quick math shows that's all the Padres runs. Tom Glavine won his 4th straight decision as Atlanta rolled to a 9-4 win over the Cubs. Chipper Jones hit 2 home runs. What sophomore jinx. Elsewhere, Cincinnati snapped a 7-game losing streak. Colorado's Larry Walker set a National League record with 6 consecutive extra base hits. It was Montreal a run better than San Francisco. St. Louis won their 3rd in a row, and New York handed Hideo Nomo his first loss of the season at home. It was a pitcher's duel in Chicago. See, I told you. The White Sox topped the Blue Jays 2-1 in 11 innings. Lyle Mouton delivered the 2 RBI triple, and it was over. Darren Bragg had quite a night as the Mariners picked up a 6-1 win over the Red Sox. First, the great grab. Then he hit a 2-run shot, part of a 5-run 5th inning. Jim Edmonds made this spectacular grab for the Angels, robbing Roberto Alomar of a homer. It wasn't enough, though, as the Orioles rolled 10-5. Alomar was 4 for 4 and did homer. The night raced his average to the magic mark of 400. Elsewhere, Texas slid by Minnesota. Kansas City's Joe Vitiello hit 2 homers in the win. Milwaukee knocked off Cleveland. The Indians' Albert Bell had his hitting streak snapped at 21. Oakland's Geronimo Barroa hit 3 home runs in the victory. NBA Orlando's Horace Grant will be out for the rest of the Eastern Conference Finals with a twisted elbow. The Bulls lead that series 2-0. The Knicks picked up the option on head coach Jeff Van Gundy on Wednesday, meaning he's under contract for 2 more years. I'm Darren Sutton, Headline Sports.
This is Headline News, a CNN network.
Sprint's going to put a winning card right in your hand.
With this card, I can call anywhere in the country for just 25 cents a minute.
She's right. When you use a Sprint Sense phone card, you can call anywhere in the country for just 25 cents a minute. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So call now.
Just 25 cents a minute?
No kidding. What's the catch?
There's no catch. And unlike other calling cards, there's no surcharge either.
No surcharge? Are you listening there in Washington?
And when you sign up for Sprint Sense, you'll also get a great 10 cents a minute rate on your calls from home. And you'll get 10% cash back after a full year.
25 cents a minute and no surcharges. That'll be great when I'm on the road.
And 24 hours a day. Now I don't have to wait until late at night to call. That's way past my son's bedtime.
What could be simpler? Just 25 cents a minute to anywhere in the country.
No surcharges.
And cash back, too. I think I'll sign up.
I'd say it's in the cards. Call now. 1-800-936-7148.
Actor Eric Douglas was picked up early Wednesday on a drug charge. The youngest son of Kirk Douglas was arrested in his Manhattan apartment. The police say they found 11 vials of crack cocaine and more than 1,000 antidepressant pills. The 38-year-old has a history of trouble with the law, including a previous cocaine arrest, allegations of disrupting 2 airline flights, and shoving a police officer. Garth Brooks is celebrating the 60s. He sold more than 60 million albums. That makes him the best-selling American solo artist of all time, and internationally, second only to the Beatles. To celebrate the milestone, he hosted a 1960s theme party in Nashville for family, friends, and members of the music industry.
You need to know what is about to be said. They had to order and ship 15 million of these units this week just to reach 60, so tomorrow morning, back to work, okay? God bless you guys. Here's to the dream.
Many know Kevin Eubanks as the leader of the Tonight Show band and sidekick to Jay Leno, but people inside the music business know him as much more. Jim Moray reports.
While his skillful guitar playing has made Kevin Eubanks famous on the jazz circuit, most Americans probably know his name and his face from late-night television.
Say hello to Kevin Eubanks and the Tonight Show band.
It's like an additional career or something. You know, like you kind of change careers without knowing it in a sense, you know. And you just inherit all that kind of stuff when you take a position like this.
The 38-year-old musician joined the Tonight Show band when Jay Leno took the reins as host 4 years ago. Eubanks became the band's leader in January 1995.
Oh, I just love this tampering. Yeah. That's great. That's nice.
Now Eubanks' duties focus as much attention on his comic abilities as his musical talents.
What do you want? Every night you call over here. What do you want, man? Oh, excuse me just a sec, Kev. Here you go. Just talk a joke or something. Kev, give me the bomb. Oh, Mr. Sensitive, funny man now. Just get... I sense hostility. Oh,
I always watched, you know, Johnny Carson show with Ed McMahon and all the sketches they used to do and things like that. And I never thought that I would be doing it, but I always enjoyed that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know. Cut it out. Cut it out. We got to go to work, man.
People know him as the consummate musician and guitar player. And so when he does something silly, they realize, oh, I see, he's going off in a little direction here.
Leno credits Eubanks with helping to boost The Tonight Show to #1. Says Eubanks' reputation among musicians helps them book top talent.
A lot of times, Sting and those kind of people don't necessarily want to bring a whole band with them. And they go, well, who's the house band? They go, oh, that guy. I can't do the show this week, you know. But with Kev, people want to come and they want to play. I mean, everybody from Garth to Sting to heavy metal, you know, they all seem to, I can't figure it out, but they all seem to think he's pretty good.
After years on the road, the luxury of a steady gig has given Eubanks more time for recording albums and writing movie scores.
George Benson once told me something that after he had a hit with Breezin', he said, yeah, he was working 25 years for his overnight success. And to some people, they see it as overnight, but to the people in the industry and in the business, they know that it's a long road, you know, to that.
Jim Moray, CNN Entertainment News, Hollywood.
Top stories 2 minutes away. I'm David Goodnow, and you're with Headline News.
This is Headline News, a CNN network.